Have you ever been in a party with a cleric while your own character was looking pretty rough, and you asked them, almost begged them, to spare a humble cure wounds, only for them to declare that they cast spirit guardians yet again? Yeah, healers are a bit weird in D&D. Hi there, I'm just a second level fighter who likes talking about Dungeons and Dragons, and if you like seeing your character's HP go up instead of down, then please like and subscribe or even leave a comment on the video. But enough about that, because today we're covering the topic of healers and their relevance in this wonderful game. So, healing in D&D. Is it strictly necessary? Do we need a pocket healer in every single party keeping up the squishies around them? There can be no doubt that the current crop of TTRPG players have been somewhat inspired by MMORPGs, and their almost universal focus on a balanced party, obviously containing a dedicated healer. But D&D is absolutely not World of Warcraft, unless of course you want it to be. A campaign in Azeroth sounds pretty cool actually. But yeah, since a lot of players cross over into D&D from video games, the expectation of some form of healer is present, for better or worse. But healing is definitely quite a potent battle plan, even if healing to full isn't always the goal. Keeping some gas in the tank to run the adventuring mobile perpetually is effective to say the least. Now, is it necessary though? Do we need dedicated healers? The short answer, it depends. As for the long answer, well, let's get into it. Let's quickly take a moment and cover what healing in D&D actually looks like and what forms it usually takes. Obviously, healing is when the hit points of a character or NPC go up toward their maximum, because bigger numbers are indeed better. So, the primary source that leads to the stereotyping of almost all cleric characters is healing from spells. Cure wounds, healing word, prayer of healing, the list goes on for a bit. Even longer if playing with older content. But spells are the most easily accessible and prolific source of healing. All it costs is spell slots or casts, and those usually come back after resting. Speaking of which, resting is by far the most common source of hit point regeneration. Every character, regardless of their abilities, can take a short or long rest. During a short rest, players can expend their character's hit dice, adding their constitution modifier for each die, and heal that many hit points. During a long rest, they regain all of their hit points and hit dice. So yeah, resting is good and is how big healing happens. But some character options have built-in healing. This can either be through features that give access to healing spells like the Celestial Warlock Celestial Spells feature or the Magic Initiate feat, or through features that simply heal a character or their allies such as the Paladin's Lay on Hands or the Healer feat. Finally, there are options outside of a player's control and more within the domain of the DM. Trinkets and baubles such as potions or magic items containing healing spells or effects are always an option if the DM makes it happen. This is a way that parties that lack any form of healing outside of rests can get an extra little boost to their hit point stretching potential. Now, assuming that items aren't a guarantee, rests are gated by the DM, and built-in healing effects are up in the air, who gets access to the plethora of healing spells? Well, if you know anything about D&D, then you know that clerics are obviously healers, right? They definitely don't have aspirations of becoming damage dealers and causing big drama and inter-party conflict. But yeah, they are known as primary healers for good reason. They have access to a lot of healing spells, especially at higher levels. Druids are arguably the second best when it comes to having a spell list littered with hit point fixes. They don't have the full spread that clerics do, but they do definitely have options. Then of course, bards have access to a fair few options, and once they reach level 10 they can simply grab whatever they like best from the cleric or druid. It also goes without saying that paladins and rangers have access to restricted and adapted versions of their parent spellcasting classes' spell lists. But their level of spell slots do hold them back a bit here. Artificers similarly fill this role to a degree. Also, some of the other arcane casters have some odd self-healing options like Arcane Vigor and Vampiric Touch hidden within their own respective spell lists. However, thanks to the 2024 Player's Handbook and the introduction of Origin feats, any character can take the Magic Initiate feat at creation and grab Cure Wounds or Healing Word for free. This is arguably better on a spellcaster because they can then upcast these for some very respectable numbers. So yay, everyone can be a dedicated healer if they desire. This is all great, but why is healing considered to be so strong in D&D? Earlier, I mentioned that the goal may not actually be to achieve a full recovery of our hit points. That's what long rests are for. But yes, unless you're very low level or focus healing a single character with a big pumper like the heal spell, you may not take a character from single digit numbers to max HP in a single spell. But that's just the nature of the game. So, within that context, because healing isn't massive and PCs and NPCs don't usually sit around dealing triple or higher the amount of HP they have in damage, the level of healing in the game is strong and largely appropriate. However, this is amplified by the fact that characters are just as effective with 1 hit point as they are with 100 hit points. As long as you're standing and able to take actions, you are a contributing member of the party. More than that, D&D is a cleverly disguised resource management simulator. Sure, role-playing is amazing and the story and blah blah blah, but behind all of that, everything comes down to how many actions, attacks, spells, and hit points can we throw at a problem until it goes away. Of course, once a logical or creativity-based puzzle or a completely ability check-based problem appears, my little analysis here falls apart. But yeah, D&D is mostly about effective health. There is a direct link between the amount of hit points a party has, the amount of damage they do, and the amount of time it takes to defeat their enemies. Tweak these options a little bit, and a party starts lasting longer or shorter. If healing is thrown into the mix, then the kill time starts mattering less and less, because the players just have more effective health to throw at the problem. Now, all of this also applies to monsters and NPCs, but unless the DM is specifically choosing to give their monsters some healing abilities or spells, players do generally have more options when it comes to healing. And this becomes abundantly clear when the thought of an enemy using healing shenanigans produces fear and panic in the mind of the average D&D enjoyer. So, let's ask it again. Is healing or the concept of dedicated healers needed in D&D? The long answer, after exploring things for a bit, is frustratingly identical to the short answer. It depends, but specifically on the DM. They are almost completely in control of the trials and tribulations that the party comes across. How many combats are you running a day? Because D&D is designed to have a few, but a lot of groups only run one big one. What is the general threat level of the combat encounters you do have? Are some enemies there just to waste resources, or is everything out for blood? How well does the party deal with taking damage? Do they have good AC and tanky builds? How many rests are they allowed to have? Do their rests ever get interrupted? And coming back to threat levels of enemies, do they ever knock the players down to 0 hit points, and how regularly does this happen? Only pure healing, even if it is just a single hit point, is going to help in this type of situation to make them operational again. But also very importantly, is the party using any alternatives to healing to keep up or improve their effective health? Now, what are these alternatives and how do they differ from healing itself? Well, for starters, they are all preventative, whereas healing is entirely reactive. It only works if a character has taken damage. These options here try to mitigate that damage and protect the hit point pool through various means. Firstly, temporary hit points are the most common example. They provide an additional hit point pool that takes damage before a character's true hit point pool does. The number of ways to get these are as numerous as healing itself, if not more. Then, a bit more specific, but adding extra hit points on top of a character's natural maximum is of course a solid way to boost effective health directly. This is done through options like the aid spell, but I dislike this as players are forgetful and often don't remember to take the extra HP away once the effect ends. Damage reduction or prevention is another very solid option. Effects like the Abjurer's Arcane Ward, or just general damage resistances granted from a myriad other sources will protect a character by making the damage they take significantly smaller, which is great. Then we get the more abstract forms of effective health boosting. Making your armor class or saving throws higher in order to have a higher chance of not taking damage at all is an awesome strategy. There have been many weird and wonderful community builds designed to specifically get as high an AC or saving throw bonuses as possible. Never getting hit in the first place tends to have pretty decent results. Finally, it's a bit counterintuitive, but either dealing enough damage to make a problem disappear before it reduces your own hit points, or removing that problem's ability to reduce your own hit points in the first place is weirdly the most commonly chosen option out of the lot, even if most players aren't quite aware that they're making this choice. Why heal when you can just deal damage or use crowd control instead? So, yeah, those are my thoughts and observations. If it wasn't quite clear, I don't really have a strong opinion here. I do like a bit of healing present in the party, but I'm also fascinated with the concept of a run and gun type game where rests are the only healing, apart from an errant potion here and there. That being said, I'd love to play a full on dedicated healer one day and see how it affects gameplay. But what are your thoughts? How do you feel about this topic of discussion? Would you prefer having some kind of healer or none at all? Also, how many combats do you typically run during a session or adventuring day, and does that affect the amount of hit points your party loses? I'd also love to hear about any clutch moments where a character was downed and then picked up with a tactical healing word or snipe heal to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Or, conversely, perhaps a horror story where the roles were reversed, and the monsters employed some sneaky healing nonsense. Alright, that was healing in D&D. Definitely a complicated aspect of the game. Heal too much, and it's a balance concern. Don't heal enough, and it is genuinely a problem. Adventurers have their limitations, and healing simply pushes that limit a bit higher. Anyway, if you've made it this far into the video, then you're a legend and I really do appreciate you. Do you prefer healing or preventative alternatives like temporary hit points and ungodly AC? I'm curious. But yeah, that'll do it for this one. Cheers.